To call the meeting of the fiscal court to order. This is a special call meeting of the fiscal court to deal with some problems that have become apparent in regard to some issues out at the Jonathan Water District. We have, I guess, all the board members are here. I asked that we get a plan of action, a progress report, which we got some. I think, Dave, you told me last week your water loss is down now to 24, about that, somewhere
Around 25 to 30.
25 to 30 from where it was, and you're continuing to work on the leaks because we did have several, particularly after the laying of that fiber optic line by West Kentucky Telephone. And I think y'all are still dealing with their board in regard to getting that straightened out and getting reimbursed for the damage that was done. Do y'all have a progress report or something you'd like to present today, or just answer questions, or what?
We're here to answer questions, I believe.
Okay, all right. Well, we'll open the floor to the fiscal court for any questions that they have. I know some of the issues that have been brought up. One was the water loss, which is being dealt with. One was the discoloration of the water.
Can we clarify that?
Yeah.
Everybody's labeled with dirty water, which it's actually not. Would you want to tell them, David, what actually occurred?
What the color actually is iron content. The effluent valve in the water plant has been it's been opening wide open instead of staying at a certain level. So it's been letting a higher concentration of the iron get out in the water system. The first time it happened, the Division of Water, I called them immediately. They came to the plant, stayed all day, explained the problem. There is no health effects because the iron is still below the standard, which is, it's only a secondary standard. There is no health effect whatsoever. It just makes it gives it the orange color.
Hold on just a minute. Just
Break it to me
out.
gently. I'm thinking, I don't know how to.
We'll just take it out the hall. Go ahead, Dave.
So we've got a new valve ordered. The company said it could take 2 to 3 months to get it ordered. In the meantime, we have put in a new air compressor, and for the time, it seems that the valve is functioning properly. We've not had any complaints in now close to a month of any discolored water that's got out into the system. So we temporarily got it fixed, but we have got a new valve ordered to fix the problem.
Okay.
Just so everybody knows, not only did David call Division of Water, he called 2 board members, Mike and myself, and we were present. And we listened to the Division of Water lady as she went over everything. That was in mid-February. And I believe we've had 2 or 3 occurrences since then, but not as bad. None since the UR compressor.
All right.
It's actually not dirty water.
Okay. All right. Other questions?
I just felt like when this whole thing started that Bobby had given a report, and as a court we were moving forward on appointment of board members without actually hearing from Bobby. And unfortunately he wasn't able to be here that day. So I think people at home, or maybe some of the board members, misconstrued my comments as being my comments. They're not my comments, they were a report I was reading from Bobby, and since he's here today, I would like for everybody at home to hear how this started, the fact that we as a court, every one of us sent Bobby to the district based on issues that were brought to us. None of us came out and went to your meeting and were alarmed or red flagged or anything like that. It was nothing sinister, it was nothing political. there were issues that were brought to us, and as a court, we said, you know, we don't know about this, but let's send Bobby out and let him draft a report, and that's what happened, and that's what I read that day, and it's as simple as that. And as a result of that, we have issues that we have to fix, and it's also as simple as that. So I would like to hear from Bobby, who maybe could clarify this a little bit as to what he found when he went out to the district.
Okay.
I brought a copy of the original that I sent to everybody. And so that we can see exactly what we're talking about and what, so that everybody's on the same page, that there's no mistake. There you go.
Also, Bob, if you would, clarify that we did not get this report until right now.
No, you did not. But I've submitted to the court. That's who I
Yes.
did this for.
And also, I would like to answer Mr. Drogue about sending Bobby out. In the May 29th meeting, we welcomed Bobby.
That wasn't in question. I was actually referencing your comments at our last meeting where you basically insinuated that I was doing this politically. So I wanted to clear the record as to how this started.
You know, I realize that there's differences here. I know that it was stated that my recommendation was do not reappoint you guys. And I'll tell you this, I had a conversation with Commissioner Dew. She asked me my opinion, and I gave it to her. Now, my responsibility to the court, and if you was to look at the report, I did not put that in there, because my responsibility to these people is to give the facts as I know, or as one of them has told me. And my apologies to the court for, I did not intend to overstep my bounds, and everything that you have in front of you, all of us here have already discussed. So if you don't mind, let's just go through everything. I attached to you all's email a copy of all the reports, and this is by no means a comparison between Jonathan Creek and North Marshall Water. But I attached a copy of all the reports that I send out to the commissioners at North Marshall all the time. And it's an agenda, it's a vendor sheet, it's a budget analysis, it's an income statement, and it's the minutes of the previous meeting, what was transpired there, and all the other works within, and a balance sheet for each one. The reason I said that I brought all this to your attention was that I said what I reported to you guys was this. Jonathan receives a balance of each bank account, and that's all they get. I've yet since then found out that that's not correct, and I want to make sure that I correct that now, because when I talked with David, he gave me that the morning after the meeting. I said, what do your commissioners get? And he said this, and I stand corrected, because I went back in some of the copies that I made, and I found where there were minutes and there was a vendor list, so I want to make sure that that's corrected to the court. But I also went on to state that there was no budget, no project reports. The list of bills, that is part of the vendor list. And the reason I said these things is, in my thinking, I was thinking, like, if I'm going to be the manager, this is what I would present to my board. And this is what I'm recommending to you guys to be able to see. The reasoning for that is that you track every penny that you spend. And there's no question, you don't have to wait until the audit is done before that you see something is awry. The software. There wasn't any question about buying the new software. If you'll see in the second paragraph, I said I wanted your IT guy to come and add your income software to the expense software. In other words, you have United for one set of books for your billing, then you have QuickBooks for your other. I gave you a contact information of a guy that would do it very cheap, to where that the two would talk to one another, and then you could produce. Your software already has all of this on it. You could produce an income statement, a budget. You can track what you budgeted for the year and track that all along. And I'd be glad to leave a copy with all of you all, everything that it may not produce it exactly like this, but you would be able to track every penny that you spend all the time.
Bobby, if you, may I part
Yes.
just a minute? United Systems is now installing all that software.
Yes.
So we will no longer be using QuickBooks.
Okay.
So I just want everybody to know, we didn't ignore you on that part, okay? We just decided to go a different route.
Okay.
Also, each month, every board member receives what I handed out to all the physical court members, what you made each month, how many gallons you pumped each month. So it gives you an idea, and in fact, you can look back 3 years to see how you compare these.
Yeah, I did not receive that.
I know, would you like one?
It's your guys now. No, I don't need it. But thank you.
Yes, sir.
We're gonna be out there, what'd you say, Thursday and Friday? Thursday and Friday, install that.
As I said, one of my big concerns was that there were no entries made to an asset account. I'd asked you guys when we had our first meeting, was you on cash or accrual basis? You're actually on accrual basis. And an accrual basis, all your expenses are not the same thing. Some go to capital contributions, some go as to regular expenses. Now in your audits, your auditor somehow pulls out these expenses that are capital assets. And I believe last year they increased by $121,000. I'm sorry, $96,471. So somehow she knew, even without your bookkeeping, somehow she knew that you all, your assets, what you spent, or an actual expense, but they also go toward your depreciation. The reason for the depreciation is, at some point, somebody's got to pay that. I know it's tough for utilities to fund depreciation accounts now, and we don't do it now, but we're trying to do 50% of what we do. In other words, if you don't do that, if you don't fund depreciation, then 10 or 15 years down the road, somebody's going to have to. A utility is not like, we can't operate on a yearly basis. We have to operate some things 2 years in advance, some things 5 years in advance, some things 10 years in advance. So that part of it, having the assets to add to your depreciation expense, which changes your, it doesn't really change your bottom line, how much money you've got left over at the end of the year, but it does change how that you depreciate out what you have. Your entire system, I believe, if you look in your audit, you have about $8 million worth of assets, but about $5 million of that has already been depreciated out. So the way that works is every year so much of that comes out, but it still doesn't mean you don't have $8 million worth of stuff. And it means somewhere down the road, you're gonna have to replace $8 million worth of stuff. That's why the 260-something thousand a year of your expense should go to depreciation. That's the important side of it. Your bookkeeper, I'm sure that has help been brought to where that she understands. You actually hired a new bookkeeper, correct? On your tanks, what I said in here was that two of you gracious enough to meet me prior to your meeting earlier, because I had to get out of town, as my stepson was getting a scholarship. But anyway, when I sat down with you guys, and I gave you the information that I've been given about how long it's been since your tanks have been worked on. For me, for what my immediate thought would have been, well, there's two reasons. One, because you've got to know how much you're gonna have to spend in the near future to get them back in shape. But the most important thing for me was that I need to get these things cleaned out, regardless of whether it was a dispute of how long it had been since they had been cleaned out. It still needs to be done. And that was my feeling, was that should have been the number one priority. And again, to everybody, I'm looking at this as if I was the manager and what I would do, and that's what I submitted in here, because that's really all that I know. I've tried to avoid most of the opinions or assumptions, but everything that thus far that I hope we have absolutely talked about prior to this today. I told you that I thought that somewhere between $500,000 and $1 million is probably a safe bet that you're gonna have to spend in the next short time between the telemetry and the tanks. That's something that you would have to budget for in the near future. And we talked, well, I know that we talked about that. And then almost at the bottom, I said with the amount of money that they were spending on leak repair and how much more that needs spending for routine upgrades and equipment, that I didn't see any way they could ever pay off their debt service because of what you're already spending on leaks and stuff like that. I mean, I'm just judging by that. I think at that time you had 24,000, including your restricted funds in the bank.
We had some unseen expenses come forward that we had to dip into our CDs to pay. That's why you don't see a large amount in our reserve. We don't actually have a depreciation account. We call it a capital improvement account, which is basically the same thing. What we have tried to do is put money in there, but again, West Kentucky Telephone has got us in a financial situation. We're trying to repair lines and still meet our payments. So yes, we are down to minimum amounts in our bank accounts, but we are paying our bills. You've left one thing off, and you may not have got to it yet. During that meeting that you asked us to, me and Mike, to attend early.
Yes.
I walked in and y'all were having a discussion about the $80,000 loss.
Yes.
How long did it take me to answer you?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up. It wasn't, my point was not that you didn't know where it went to. My point was that it took that long, I mean, to realize in the audit that your expenses, your pumping expenses went up.
That was due
And-
to West Kentucky.
And your revenue went down, that there had to be a reason that your water loss was not what was being reported.
Understand.
And that should have been a red flag to you guys to say, hey, something's wrong. And that's the reason I put that there,
I
was
understand
that,
but did I show you that Kim Lake?
yes, oh,
$40,000?
yes, but again, my point is that it should have been a red flag. It should have been something immediate. And that's why I go back to the reports, where that if you monitor all the time, then that would be easier to catch than when you have to wait until your audit's done. And Judge, really, I mean, everything else we've discussed, you know, we've been at differences over tanks, over materials and stuff like that we buy, but we've all discussed, and I'll be glad to give all of you all a copy of the reports that we get. I think I sat with Mike in my office one morning and showed him what these are, what they give to you, and unless there's any other questions.
Yes, I have.
Yes.
Did you or did you not send me an email saying that you did not say anything about it in the report about
I
risk?
said I did not put it in the report I gave to the court. Yes, I did.
That you what?
I did not put that in the report,
Okay.
but I just told you that I did speak privately with Commissioner Dew, and I did say that.
Okay. Thank you.
One of the other issues that you pointed out here, that only one commissioner sees and signs off on all bills paid. And you said that's not a good practice, or maybe not even legal. Does only one person sign off and see the bills?
There's times that just one does, but I sign off on them every week. Barry does, David does.
To adhere to House Bill 1, which, the regulations state that a special district has to adopt at least as stringent as the county that it serves under. And that's the reason that I put that in there, Judge. The procurement policy of a special district has to be at least as strict as the county that it serves.
That's true.
You know, I asked, at the first meeting we had, I asked you guys about the capacity development. Have you seen the report? Have you seen I gave you a contact guy, Jason Lambert, with the state about who would have this report for you if you didn't find it. That's very, very, very important for you all to have that information, because it covered, as I told you before, every aspect of your district was gone through. And that was last June, July, something like that.
Bobby, there was a tank issue that was referenced at some point. I think there was a request for $800,000 to build a tank.
Well, they had bid a tank, and I don't remember your engineer, I think it was Florence and Hutchinson. And they requested Water Vision to pay, they had a SPAT grant to pay half, and they requested us to pay half. I had just built a tank, similar in size, and I thought that was too high, and I asked them to allow my engineers to come in and change some things, and the price went from $800,000 to $400,000.
But Bobby, explain that was the design of the tank.
It was absolutely the design of the tank.
It wasn't that we requested it, it was someone that sat down with the engineer and said, this is what we want, not the board.
Wasn't it also partially due to the reduction in steel prices? Wasn't
That
about the
probably
time-
had a little to do with
About
it.
the time the economy had basically imploded. I know it impacted a lot of the things that I do. Steel makes a big
It could have,
difference in
it
the
could have
price.
made some difference, but it didn't make $400,000 worth of difference.
May I ask Bobby a question, Judge? I know that you have come into North Marshall and you turned it completely around. Congratulations.
Thank you.
But explain to me, I don't know how long have you been there now? 3 years?
Yes.
How long?
Yes, 3 years.
3 years? Why did it take you that long to find out that the tank contract that you had, you weren't getting what you paid for?
I evaluated every one of the contracts that were there, and it just took time to walk through them all.
Okay. And on the depreciation thing, you raised rates August the 13th. Now, you went after a loan in August the 13th, which I assume is because you didn't have no depreciation money to fix problems in your infrastructure.
Well, what we did was we did a survey of the entire system over 15 years, and we found that that we were paying $120,000 worth of repairs, that I could fund $78,000 worth of debt service and eliminate that. So I would add $50,000 to be able to put back into my coffers.
But shouldn't your depreciation account take care of that for you?
Yes,
But it didn't. You had to go borrow money.
yes, we are gonna borrow money, but it's a $4-point-something million project.
But your depreciation account should have handled all, you're not actually land, you lying.
No, I was in debt when I walked in the door.
Thank you, Bobby, I was too.
But Mr. Hill, that was 21 years ago, and this is not about you in North Marshall. This started, and let's make this very clear, there was a complaint, am I right, a complaint that was made to the Public Service Commission. We were brought to a meeting in May or June, is that right?
May 29th.
In May, based off of that complaint that went to the Public Service Commission. None of us sought this out. None of us did anything but try to keep it in-house. As every time we have an issue in this court, the first complaint from the public is, well, you went out to have this one look into it, or you went out to have that one look into it. We had Bobby Gifford at North Marshall, who has proven himself to know how to run a water district. And we had him come out to offer assistance to try to work on these problems. And in 2 weeks, you reported back that you could no longer work out there. Is
No,
that-
it was longer than that.
A month?
Yes.
And then the report, what, you're no longer out there, why?
My history with you guys has not been good. And it was a very poor choice of words on my part to say I've wasted my time, that I should have been doing something else.
But hindsight's 20/20, Bobby. You're a very, very busy man, there's no doubt. But there's other busy men too, okay? When you got your report done, you should have come to us as a board and said, hey, we have these deficiencies, or I need to look at this, please give me some answers.
But in his defense, and may I, his
Bobby can
task,
speak for himself.
but you don't understand, he doesn't know this. His task from the court was to report to us, not to you. And so he gives the report to us, and as a court, it was our obligation to meet with you, and as I understand, that was a recommendation, and with all due respect, that was overlooked. And we moved this straight to a vote without any consideration of that report, and it was not fair to any of you, because guess what happened? Before we could vote on it, I, in good conscience, could not do that without discussing these issues, and that's what happened. We as a court should have tabled those recommendations, as Bobby suggested, and that didn't happen. And I said, okay, I cannot go out there and vote on that without talking about these issues. And so the whole community had to know, when all we had to do was have one more meeting, and Bobby suggested that. He suggested that that report he gave on your behalf come to us and we meet with you all. And he recommended that, to my best understanding, to the judge, and
When did you
that did
recommend
not
that to me,
happen.
Mr. Gifford? Because I don't recall you recommended that I delay any appointments.
Not delay appointments. I said you recommended that we have a meeting with the board on the report.
Oh, yeah, we discussed
And
that.
but we did
I
not
thought
do
we-
that. We went straight to a vote on the
Oh, okay.
reappointment. He did try to,
When are you
on your
Are you
behalf.
talking about back in the spring? Or
No,
you-
no. After he was finished and could no longer work out there, he recommended that we meet with the board to discuss those things, just like what you're saying. And that didn't happen. The next thing, we're voting on reappointments. And here we have the report sent to us. So that's how this happened.
And to answer Ms. Drew, I have no problem with the community knowing everything. It's their water district, it's not my water district. Each person that has a water meter owns part of that water district. And by the way, Ms. Drew, I don't know where your mother-in-law lives, but we log all phone calls and she hasn't complained.
Most people don't.
Would you
They're
mind giving
used
me
to
the
it.
address so we can check it out?
Absolutely, I will get that to you. And the sheriff mentioned it, you mentioned it last time, you have family members that live in that water district. Is this the first time that you've ever heard that the water isn't something they want to drink out of the faucets? Or is this the first time that you've ever heard that the water is dirty? Because that has been something I have heard from people that I know that live in that district for a long time. They'll tell you, we drink bottled water because we can't drink what comes out of the faucet. And if that's the first time you're hearing this, then I apologize to you, because I don't know how you couldn't have heard that.
We're trying to address the issue.
Okay, then why be so combative about it? Let's just fix the problems instead of making excuses and denying everything and making political accusations that has nothing to do with any of those things.
Well, before we get into any further, we can sit here and talk about it all day. I've heard from some of my friends, the coloration of the water, having trouble, you know, their whites getting dingy from the water. I mean, we've all heard that. I've got 2 grandchildren that drink that water. So I've got a stake in this too. But all I'm asking is, and I think this court, what we need to know is that what are we gonna do going forward to correct these problems? Now, we're already making progress, it appears to me, with trying to stop these leaks. There's people that wanna hook on. I know that I talked to Mike, I believe, I don't know when it was, Mike, about the Barnett Cemetery Road. Some folks out toward the Brewers area that you're beginning to, I think, hook up now. But, and I'm not gonna speak for the whole court, I'll let them speak for themselves, but all that I'm interested in is seeing that we continue to make progress in trying to solve these problems. Now, there might be 10 more problems crop up tomorrow, okay? Both here and at North Marshall. North Marshall does have an advantage by having one of the best wells that you'll find in West Kentucky. They don't have to even treat the water much, do they, Bob?
No.
Out of the well. For the longest time at Jonathan, we were pulling lake water, trying to treat lake water and treating lake water. So there's plenty of blame to go around, and I don't see that that's gonna solve any issues by doing that if we've got a plan in place. And if we can show progress month to month. And Chairman Edwards and I talked about this, and he said, we're doing it. Hadn't been putting it down on paper, but, we can do that. But I think that's what this court is most interested in, at least I hope they are, that we correct the problems that we have. You're not gonna ever get all your leaks, are you, David? You've been in this business a long time, but it's gonna happen from time to time in every district, am I correct? You had Lyon County, the whole county for a good while, so you understand what I'm talking about. You don't know when something's gonna blow up. Any other questions?
Yeah, I've got some, I need to get some things cleared up, and David, you may be able to answer these, some of them have already been answered. When we started this, I started logging some of the things that were alleged and stated, and try to conduct my own investigation in regard to these things, and you may have already answered this, but the cloudy water, low pressure, now, some of that has been alleged longer than these issues with those leaks. I mean, cloudy water, I mean, that's the iron, but,
The cloudy is usually air and
Yeah.
rain.
okay. But you think that, because when we met back in May, we were talking about a 60% loss. And that is now 25 to 30%. So that 60% was coming from those leaks caused by telephone company, right?
I think it's that, and in 2013, we weren't allowed to do our regular maintenance on leaks. We were covered up with West Kentucky Telephone, staying with them, so that
Okay.
resolved the other leaks.
Okay, so this will go back at least through 2013.
Oh, I think it goes back further than that.
Okay, that's what I didn't have. All right. And like you say, you've got not only that, but you always have leakage issues that, and you all have a plan on, and are working on that, on addressing those. Now, there was some mention made back in one thing that I've been looking into as well, that there was we had a larger water loss than what was being reported. Is,
I believe that was correct, if you look at the paperwork.
okay,
I mean, like I said, that was before I come to work. And I only started here at the end of January. I can't speak prior to January, what happened at the water district.
Jeff, I have a report in front of me that says that they flushed in November of 12, 4,500,000
yeah. Well,
gallons, and I checked around, and I don't know, that puzzles me, and somebody at the higher pay grade than I do needs to explain that to me, how that can
back
happen.
last year, well, that's part of
Maybe
what I.
David or Bobby.
Hold on, let me finish, Barry.
Bobby or Bobby, were you aware of that?
What?
The near $5 million, 5 million gallons in a month for flushing of the lines? How could that
Well,
be?
Well, and I've met with Matt and done a lot of checking with, with the records and all, and I don't understand how a water system works completely, but it seems to make more sense, and because there was a lot of flushing and the way I believe he explained it to me was the dirty water gathering, and then you flush all that out off to try to replenish it with, not dirty water, but cloudy water, and replenish it with clean, when you had clean available. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, I would say so.
Okay. And I think they may be able to explain it. That's where I got as well, Terry. That was an astronomical number, and that's
And
what I was.
maybe, and once again, I don't know.
Can I
But
do it? Just-
how did the Public Service Commission stepped in, and looks like in these reports in 2011, or later part of 10, and started requesting monthly reports. And that puzzles me too. That tells me that something red flagged them. Why did they do that? What was
Those
happening?
water loss, Terry.
Water loss?
It exceeded 15%.
Okay.
And
So that's why you do a monthly report instead of an
Yes.
annual report?
as a board member, we have always, and all the board members are here, been told our water loss is 15%. Now, I made a mistake. I didn't actually look at the water loss report. I'll tell you up front, from now on, I will. Each monthly report, I'll see. But I've got some, to me, it's easier. Everything in front of you, that gives you the water losses at first. You don't have to do, go to it for a piece of paper, and find out what you want to know.
Okay. All right, I've got just a couple more things I think you answered, there was the issue on the tank. You all discussed that, about the cost of the tank, so that, I can take that off the list. Now, there's also been mention made of property purchased for a tank.
Yes, sir.
And I believe that my understanding, there was another piece of property that was available at one time, and during negotiations, either the difference in the acreage or the availability of that property at all went away before you all were able to step in and buy it. Is that correct?
I don't really know what you're talking about, Jeff. I haven't seen.
This would be the property for the,
Last tank?
I think, Jeff, are you talking about the Audit tank?
the Audit tank. I went blank. Yes, the Audit tank. Is that an accurate description of what happened?
Not clearly.
Okay, well, that's what, I just need to clear that up.
Okay. At the meeting of 2006, March 28th, Bobby was attending. I made a motion to buy the property.
Did you say 2006?
Yes, sir. 2006.
Okay.
I made a motion to buy the property for $10,000 an acre for Jimmy Lovett because our past superintendent, Matthew, had talked to some people up around the Olive area, and we could not purchase any land unless we was purchasing 7 or 8 acres at one time.
Okay.
And we
So
decided not
that,
to
the
do
other proper, and then and then I know there was some extra expense in lines, but that was a line that you planned to put in anyway, correct?
That's right, yeah, because that would be no extra expense, because that line was gonna be there anyway.
I mean, that's what my investigation has shown, and I just want to make sure that that is
That's correct.
correct. Okay. That's all I
In
have.
fact, I believe if Bobby will help me on this, I think the Olive tank was originally built for the pressure in Olive, but also we went on and tied on the 402 to help the brewers area. Is that not correct, Bobby?
What road?
That would have been,
1364,
Is there a name on it? Who?
Olive Creek.
I do not remember. I'm
yeah,
sorry.
that's what we did. So apparently there was an allegation that we laid some water line just so we could purchase the property from Mr. Levitt. Is that what you're saying, Bill?
Well, that's part of it. That's what I wanted to clear up.
Is
And,
that clear?
yeah, it is to me,
Okay.
but I didn't know there was a chain of events there that occurred that I wasn't aware of until just recently.
We was in jeopardy of losing that tank, funding, if we hadn't found anybody. The only thing we found was a crossroads at Olive. I think it was 7 acres. And we decided that we didn't want to go in real estate business, to be soft to them. And then Jimmy either came to us, or Matt came to him, I don't know. But,
And the elevation was the same, so it didn't affect us.
Yeah, well, that was my next question. The elevation was similar? Okay.
I have a question for Bill.
For me?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I've been talking to an individual who used to be in charge of MediaCom here in town, but he's not now. And he says there's a possibility West Kentucky might have infringed on their franchise agreement with the county by damaging our lines. Is that a possibility?
It's a possibility, I guess. Yeah, I mean,
And
that's
that would bring the county attorney in, and we wouldn't have to seek outside legal help.
well, I'll be happy to review that agreement.
That's a legal matter, I'll let you guys.
Well,
And-
the individual approached me, and he said, "Hey,
And
you need to
you,
check
I
into
know,
that
I
franchise."
hope you understand, the statute was changed in 2008,
Yeah, I
and it took that out of my list, but I'm happy to assist in any way I can. I mean, I think I've assisted some even since that day,
I know you have,
but,
yeah.
so, I just clear the air.
hey, Judge, you said you kind of want a progress report. Let David tell you kind of what he's done, since he's done that.
Okay, David?
Well, I have fixed 68 water leaks, I guess is the maintenance thing. We put new controls in the water plant. We put a new air compressor in the plant. We bought a new dump truck, or a newer dump truck. We bought a newer trailer. We bought a new pickup. I mean, that's some of the things that, we bought our own boring machine. We let our subcontractor go that was doing our road boring, which is, I think we've done 11 road bores, so that saved us between $20,000 to $30,000 doing it ourselves, even after the cost of the boring.
It's paid for the machine and 4 bolts.
Is that your idea? Why would I have done that before?
Because we didn't have the employees capable of doing it.
Why?
I disagree with that. I run a hall in Missouri.
We bought it while you was there, though.
Yes, you did.
Well, let me get back to these leaks, David. You repaired 68. Now, and again, I'm asking because I don't know. How often do you flush the lines? I know you have to flush the lines periodically. to try to get the sediment out? Do we have a set schedule that we flush lines?
The state recommends they're flushed twice a year. They recommend spring and fall, that you completely flush your system.
Each line? And are we doing that? That's what I'm
The
asking.
problem there is that we do flush periodically.
I think you'll see that water loss in July is because of that problem we had. He's flushing every line out there.
Okay. Now, and again, I'm just asking because I don't know. Do we have some lines that say are 6-inch lines and then go to a 3-inch and then back to a 6? Or somewhere a combination of those? In other words, some lines are smaller that they hook onto a bigger line? I mean,
Yes, I'm sure there is some of them.
would that cause some sediment buildup if they're not flushed properly?
It could cause a flushing issue, trying to flush if you're trying to flush a 6-inch line with a 3-inch feeding it, you can't get the proper flushing volume through the 6-inch line.
Okay.
The major issue with flushing, and I think David would agree, would be all the dead end lines. That creates problems.
Judge, I got a question.
Yes, sir.
How much digging has your fiber done in Calvert City?
How much what, Jay?
How much digging has Calvert City, your fiber optic done digging in Calvert City? I mean, they dug all the way around Harford County over here.
Well, they particularly
Been
in
in
this.
more water lines you checked the stick at one last year, right there at my place.
Yeah, well, I think West Kentucky Telephone is not in the north end of the county, are they, Bobby, at all?
Just,
Well, how can you,
Hardin and,
Hardin, Olive, Fair Dealing, Aurora area?
yeah,
Okay.
but how can you compare one water company to another? I mean, how far apart are they? 18 miles, 20 miles? You can take a well that's 500 feet apart, and you got all kinds of difference.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know how you can compare water companies.
Well, we still have, and I got an email from a lady just today, or yesterday, well, she's out in the west part of the county, which is served by Benton, and they're still waiting on water. We've still got a lot of roads out in the Jonathan area that do not have potable water available. And of course, that's one of the goals that we've had, is trying to get potable water by the year 2020 to every household in the county. Now, that's gonna cost money. Grants have pretty much dried up. I think we all know that. But we still have to have a plan of how we're going to proceed with fulfilling these needs. And that's what I'd like to see, some forethought by the board in what we're gonna do, not just in the year 2014, but 2015, 16, 17, down the road. Are we gonna be sitting here 3, 4, 5 years from now talking about the same thing? And I think that's the thing the court is looking for, is to what is our plan and how do we do our proper, planning for the future.
We have a project list that we've started on, and I guess if you could have two number ones, it would be telemetry and whether or not to paint the road tower or replace it. We're sitting there trying to make that decision, but we're trying to get ourselves paid off from this new water plant that we currently have. And I didn't tell, I thought I had paid off $1.5 million on the new water plant August of next year, and I will have. But I forgot about the $500,000 that I paid off on the old water plant. So by August of next year, we will have paid off $2 million. There are some roads that are either loops that will make loops, or people that have requested, like Bird Road, people have requested because they got bad wells now. But again, you have to have monies available to lay the water. It's not-
Let me ask you a question, and you may have probably already looked into this, Barry. And I don't know what interest you're paying on your loans that you have now, but interest rates are still, they're going up, but they're still pretty good.
we can refinance.
You have okay, that's the question I was gonna ask you.
Mike took care of that.
Let me bring that up. The last two meetings, there was, I guess it was true, it was kind of a misconception of a $100,000 loan that we used. Well, it was two loans, one for 35 and one for 72. But we paid 71,000 on that, so we really missed it, but we didn't miss it much. And if West Kentucky would say, well, we paid it, and we got the money to pay it right now, but we're just kind of holding off.
But we actually didn't miss it, because it actually did not come due until February of next year.
Well, that's
We missed that 6-month window to make that initial payment.
We paid 71 out of 100, I think it's probably 101,000. So we didn't miss it. We missed it, but we didn't miss it all that much. And it was kind of thrown out there in the last two meetings, and we just didn't pay any of it, so we really did.
And there's a question I'd like to ask Jeff, or you, Mike, you might know. I called West Kentucky Telephone the other day and asked if I could attend the next board meeting. The lady says, no, their board meetings are closed to the public. I thought it was publicly owned. It's a co-op. Did you find out?
I've never known them to be closed.
Bob said they are.
I don't know. I don't know the answer. I thought so too, Barry, and I'll have to find out.
We were just gonna go to it.
We were going to attend the meeting as a last ditch effort to try to resolve this payment that we feel like they owe us. But the lady I talked to said that they did receive our arrestor letter.
So they'll probably discuss it at the board meeting, Bob?
They probably have, I'm not legally have, I don't think, but if they want to call Mr. Bonstetter, he'll talk to them, and he'll probably set up a meeting with the board if you need one there.
Okay.
What's his name, Bob? Bonstetter?
Bonstetter, Trevor Bonstetter.
See if y'all can set up a meeting. I think that would be helpful.
He's the one you have to work with anyhow.
Yeah.
Well, we're just afraid that they're gonna settle with this general contractor and he'll be gone and,
Because the contractor's actually the one that did the damage.
the general and his associate contractor.
Okay. All right. Other questions or comments?
Do we have a timeline, or, I know whenever, when we had similar issues with North Marshall, they, of course, we replaced the board. But when they started over, they kind of looked at their policies and procedures, and they revamped the way that they worked with the superintendent. And one of the reasons why I wanted you all here today, and I wanted Matt to be here and anybody else, was because a lot of times when these issues surface, you've got one person saying, well, it was this one, or another one saying it was that one, and what they've been able to do successfully, because I've attended a lot of their meetings, is during those meetings, there's a really good cohesion between the superintendent and the board. So everyone is on the same page about every single thing that they're doing. And that way you don't miss reports on flushing, or you don't miss reports on projects and things like that that might be important to David, or if there's things that he's doing, he's not doing it without your knowledge. I know you probably remember some of the issues that came up at North Marshall. To avoid that, do you have a pretty good policy and procedure manual in place that addresses all those specifics that can sometimes cause you trouble?
Yes, I would like to answer your question. To compare us with North Marshall is ridiculous, because it's nothing to compare to what went on in North Marshall. If you want me to talk about North Marshall, I'll be glad to all day long, but that's not what this is for.
The reason
Yes,
I make
in
the
future.
comparison is
May I-
because,
may I finish?
no, you may not, because I'm gonna make a statement on that. The reason that this is important is because you had a report to the Public Service Commission and the Attorney General's office that you had falsified reports, and if you don't think that's important, then you probably don't need to be on that board. That is important, that's why we're here today, and that's only one of the allegations. The ones that Mr. Edwards was going over, some of the things that he was talking about are serious allegations, just as the other board members face serious allegations.
And I believe I answered every one of them.
And you did, but all the
And I
same, they have to
understand
be
it's a
answered,
serious
so that is
situation,
why
but
it's a
we are not
comparison.
to be compared to North Marshall.
I
It is
understand
no
the
comparison
difference.
of North Marshall.
It is a water board,
It
just
is
like they are a
board,
water
that's the
board.
end of the comparison.
And I didn't say anything further, sir. I
Yes, you
said
did.
it is a comparison of whenever you come back to the table, you have a water board and a superintendent. That's the only comparison I made. You have a water board, that's correct. You have a superintendent, that's correct. He's new. What I'm asking is, do you have policy and procedure in place to protect you and to protect him in the event that you have issues down the road? You can clearly go back and reference policy and procedure that allowed those protections. That's what I'm asking you. Do you have that? Okay, thank you.
So we do have a policy and procedure manual.
Yes, sir.
What I would ask that the board, and I think anybody, us included, need to review your policy and procedure manuals annually, make any changes or updates or corrections. Now, on the water loss, in looking, these, I guess, the reports, 18%, 18.5 one year, 23.73 one year, 23.23 one year, up to this point today, 35.60. Is that about right? Okay, so looks like we're bringing that down. Still got a ways to go, and I hope you continue on that. But again, if we can see a monthly report, a progress report, I think it would be helpful to this court, even if one of you want to come to the court meeting or just give a written report. It doesn't matter to me. It might be easier for one of the members just to come and orally give a report rather than to tie your staff up, typing one up. But I'll leave that up to y'all. But as long as we are making progress and moving forward. Now, we talked about the tank maintenance at the court meeting, and I believe I understood it was either you or Mike, Barry, I'm not sure, said we have to wait till after the summer season, your peak season, to do that maintenance on the one tank you're looking at?
Well, Mike, we dug back further through the files because we had I know this sort of sounds ridiculous, but it actually happened. We had a water leak in our office December of last year, and a lot of files got put in different places, okay? So I dug back through the minutes, and the Reed Road tank maintenance was done to it 5 years ago. Now, the reason we haven't painted the outside of the Reed Road tank is, like I said a while ago, we're either going to paint it or we're going to replace it. It'd be silly to paint it and then turn around a year later and replace it.
Well, I'm not so concerned about the appearance of the outside. I'm concerned about the inside and making sure that we keep those tanks clean. And here again, I don't know anything about tank maintenance, but I know it needs to be done periodically, okay?
I think David's working on a plan to do it.
Beg your pardon?
I think David's working on a plan to do it.
Okay.
I've been in touch with one of the tank inspections down there, trying to get a date lined out where they can come inspect the Reed Road tank.
Okay. Jeff, you had something you were going to make a minute ago.
No, I'm good.
Okay. Bob, Terry? Anything else the board would like to address to the court? I mean, I want to get everything that we can out on the table.
Well, there's one other thing, being Bobby's here, he promised us 3,000 foot of 6-inch line from the Brewers extension. from 2020 project, remember that, Bobby?
Jack Treese,
Yeah, I think so.
I just submitted a bill for the engineering.
Okay.
To tell you the truth, right now, I'm stuck between trying to fund a pumping station, waiting to hear from somebody else about helping funding. So to tell you I'm gonna buy it tomorrow, I won't tell you that, but I'll tell you as soon as I can.
Oh, I thought you had pipe left over from the 2020.
No.
Oh, you did not?
I had money left over from what I thought I was
Okay, my
gonna do.
misunderstanding.
But I am gonna pay your engineering, the next meeting.
For the,
Jack Treese.
Now, let's get back just a minute. What Mr. Gifford said about the software compatible. Now, we've got new software, I think you said,
Be there after tomorrow.
be there day after tomorrow.
And CFSP, we ordered, some stuff from them, and it's here, and as soon as they get done, CFSP will come install that.
So we'll be able to kick out reports on a more timely basis, or is that what you,
It's more in line with what Bobby, the guy is doing.
okay, all right,
It makes everything a lot easier, lots of.
okay. Any other questions? From anybody?
Make a comment.
Yes, sir?
I worked there 3 years. I know in the 3 years I've been there, I've never once seen them filters go dry. And right after David took over, we have an alarm system on that water plant. If anything goes wrong, it calls you. The first thing he done was shut the alarm system off, and I quote his exact words was, "I don't want it calling me all night. If something goes wrong, a customer will call." I've seen them filters before I left there go dry several times, more than 10. And anytime them filters go dry, it sucks that iron and it sucks whatever them filters are filtering out of that water. It sucks it right on through and puts it out in the system. Now, I know they told him that if he can show that he saves them money, he was going to get a substantial raise. So I'm gonna say that the reason that system is so full of dirt and the water loss is down so far is because he won't let you flush. That shows that he's making a profit. That shows that he's saving money. And that's where a lot of your iron and stuff in the water is coming from.
Could you state your name, please, for the record? State your name, please. Pardon?
Shane.
Shane? Okay, thank you, Shane. For the record. Yes.
I'd also, for the record, like to report that is a former employee that was let go because he continuously let tanks sit and run over all night because he didn't want to go check on them. That's the reason he was let go.
No, I was called.
And he was
Well,
also there.
I'll let you guys argue that out. I'm interested in one thing, and that's if we're gonna make progress and we're gonna make substantial progress toward working out all these kinks that we've talked about. Who did what, when, and where, I'll leave that up to the board to decide and decipher, but, bottom line is, we know we've got problems, we know we gotta solve them. All I want is a plan of action to do it. And I think that's what this court wants. Anything else? If not, thank y'all for coming. I'd entertain a motion.
Motion to adjourn?
Huh?
Motion to adjourn?
Have a motion, is there a
Second.
second? All in favor, say aye. Meeting adjourned.